For my entire childhood, I'd always grown up playing tons of sports, hockey, swimming, track, a little bit of boxing, right? And I went ahead and did all of these things, and I enjoyed them thoroughly, right? At the time, I was extremely athletic, and at the time, because, my sporting performance was truly all I thought I had going for me, right? So I made the most out of it. I enjoyed every second, right? But there came a time where I was still skinny, right? I was still insecure, right? I was looking in the mirror and I just still hated the position I was in. And I was doing all these things and I came to realize, what do I actually want? Because right now it feels like I'm using all of my energy, right? Going around in circles, waking up early, right? Going to bed late, grinding, doing the things I'm supposed to be doing, when that in actual reality wasn't the case, right? And it was towards things that genuinely didn't actually satisfy me and actually allow me to move forward to the things I truly wanted. And I was around all these people, right? I felt like I was doing everything right. I was working hard. I was always a, shy, innocent kid, right? I was doing everything I thought I was supposed to be doing, right? To actually move me forward and get me to where I wanted to be. But the thing is that I still had the bad habits, right? I was actually procrastinating. My productivity wasn't actually that good. And the time that I was focusing, it was just not actually as productive as I thought, and I wasn't doing as much as I simply thought. Even though I was, spinning my wheels and completely going around in circles with everything I was doing. And, with that being said, I started the gym just to truly help with sporting performance. It was just sort of a side thing, right? I was gonna, develop my explosivity, strength, power, all of those things that translates into the sports I was doing, track and boxing, right? I started the gym to go ahead and go through with those things, right? But, as I was doing it, I realized I don't want to be like everyone else. I know I'm different, right? And I just want to better myself, do what I truly enjoy, right? And get to that next level. And, from there, I just started staying consistent with it, right? I showed up no matter how I felt. I did this for a period of time. Now, obviously, I had no idea what I was doing. I was clueless, right? I had no structure, no discipline, still had all the bad habits. Right, but I can tell you now, in that first 6 months to a year, I made no visible progress, right? But I enjoyed the process, right? Even though I was frustrated that I didn't make the gains I wanted to, I was still putting in the time. But right, my mental strength and my mental energy improved. Right, I still visibly, developed as a person. Right, I got happier. It was a place that I could just, release emotion, right? Release negativity. And, I had to truly come to terms with myself, ask myself what I truly wanted, right? And start building the things in place so I could, start becoming the person that I knew I was capable and wanted to be, right? And for me, I dropped everything, right? I dropped everything, I was questioned for sure. People thought I made a bad decision, but I truly was just, addicted to bettering myself, addicted to the self-improvement, right? The becoming the best version I possibly could, putting in the work, right? Because I know the work I'm putting in now will amount to something. I know it's going to get me somewhere, right? But there's all these people who are in this position where they have the structure, they have the routine. Yes, they're working hard, but at the same time, what are you truly getting out of it, right? A lot of people, they're constantly waiting for that next lunch break. They're constantly waiting for the weekend, constantly waiting for the evening, right? But when they have this mindset, they only wait for those things because it's their time where they can actually remove themselves from the situation, remove themselves from the work and, having to show up for other people and take care of their responsibilities, right? But in those situations, when is there actually going to be a time you start focusing on yourself? When is there going to be a time where you step aside, right? And you stop coming up with excuses, right? You stop telling yourself you don't have the time, you don't have the energy, because something needs to give. And there's going to be a time where you have to make a decision, right? And it's not going to be easy and it's not going to be comfortable, right? But you're going to need to make the right decision to put yourself in the best possible position to actually live the most healthiest, happiest, and fulfilling life that you want, right? And it's gonna come down to truly, what do you actually want? How do you want to live your life, right? Are you going to continue being okay with being out of breath when you walk up the stairs? Are you going to continue being okay with showing up for other people, constantly feeling like you're working hard, right? Your energy is being drained, right? But you're convincing yourself you don't have the time to actually go ahead and work on yourself, right? Work on what matters to you, because no one else is going to care for you as much as you do, right? At the end of the day, the people around you and the people that want you to show up will always rather you show up and do their work, right? Always rather you show up and get it done, right? But when are you going to realize that you need to do things for yourself? Because no one else is going to tell you what to do. No one else is going to say and hold you 100% accountable, just like the people you work for does, just like everyone in that environment who, also has the bad decisions maybe. Everyone who's handing around the cupcakes in the office, handing around the bad snacks in the office. When are you actually going to level up and realize that you need to take some action, take some accountability, and take things into your own hands to disassociate yourself from the crowd, right? To actually break through and get to where you want to be, because you say you want that life and you say you want to make a change. But right now you're living, acting and moving just like everyone else is, right? So one thing you have to realize, right, is stop coming up with excuses, right? Stop putting yourself in a position where you're not able to go ahead and actually spend time on yourself, right? The bad food's always going to be there. The quick dopamine spikes are always going to be there, right? Going home, and watching TV with a bowl of ice cream and a pizza after work, convincing yourself you don't have the time or energy, is always going to be an opportunity for you to do that, right? There's always going to be events, parties, things to go to, opportunities to go fall off track, opportunities to eat poorly, to make poor decisions. But when are you going to break through that? When are you going to hold yourself to a higher standard? Right? When are you going to start taking yourself more seriously and actually sticking to the things that you say you want and say the life that you want to live? Because you're capable of doing it. I was once in the same position when all I wanted was the physique I have now, was to build the muscle, build the confidence, build the discipline and the habits of the person that, can stay in shape, right? But can still enjoy their life and do the things they want to do. I've been there, okay? I used to be completely overwhelmed with information. I had all the bad habits, right? Like I said, I was extremely busy juggling school, right? I was working, right? I had clubs, responsibilities, and I just started hitting the gym. I was tired, I was exhausted every single day, right? I felt like not 1 minute of the day did I have time to actually spend, relaxing or whatever you want to call it. Now I understand it's not easy, right? It's going to be difficult, especially if you're in a position where you're so used and so accustomed to, relaxing and convince yourself that it's okay to sit down and do nothing and not spend any time working on yourself. But you have to build it up slowly. Find something sustainable and enjoyable that you actually want to do and get done, right? And compound and stack those wins over time, right? And you'll get more accustomed to it and you'll start to enjoy the process. You'll just have a positive domino effect that spirals upwards. And with that being said, do you think you're going to regret working on yourself? Do you think you're going to regret removing yourself from bad situations that aren't actually moving you forward, aren't helping you build good habits, right? Do you think, working on yourself, building those good habits, getting into the best shape of your life is going to be something you regret? No. Do you think having more energy, having more confidence, right? Being able to dominate any room that you walk into, right? Feeling free, being able to spend more time with your children if you have, right? Getting more respect from your wife, from your family, from the people that actually love and care for you. Do you think you'll ever regret that? No, right? So these bad habits, the procrastination, the distractions is always going to be there. But you have to ask yourself what matters most. It's like you being able to watch your favorite team on the TV is always going to be there, right? The chance to get that quick hit of dopamine and feel like, you're benefiting from them in some way, shape or form is always going to be there, right? But truthfully, this team who you enjoy watching so much, you invest so much of your time and energy for, they don't know you exist. They don't pay your bills. They don't help you progress as a man, right? They don't allow you to get in the best shape of your life, right? So why are you okay with letting, outside factors control what you do with your time, control how you live your life, how you act, how you move, how you feel about yourself, how others perceive you to look, right? And I want you to think about this right now. If you have children, right, and they only ever see you, first of all, go to work in the mornings when you say goodbye. And then when you come back home and you're watching TV, they never actually see you work, right? It's hard for them to understand, even though they know you are going to work, you are actually going to do something. It's hard mentally for them to actually picture, and put you on this pedestal, right? Put you on this high level because they never actually see you in person, chase anything, work towards anything that's difficult, overcome challenges. Now, don't get me wrong, you're probably working hard doing all of these things, but I'm just talking about from a children's mind, from a child's perspective, right? They're probably not going to respect you as someone who they see potentially even on TV, who's in shape, who's jacked, right? Who has the things that, they see as valuable, right? And they would want. And do you want to be that father, that dad, that ambitious guy who is looked up upon by his children as that guy who can be replaced, who's lazy, right? Who doesn't take care of himself, who's not holding himself to a high standard? Do you want to be viewed by that? And it's not something they can control, it's just a subconscious feeling, a subconscious thought, right? And I feel like people get stuck in this position of where they're constantly trying to, do better or one up or, compare themselves to all these other people, right? But you have to understand you're comparing yourself to people who normalize wasting time, who normalize, self-improvement and leveling up as something that's not really that serious. So you can be a part of that, you can be, within that average, space. You want to be the upper tier of average. But do you want to completely exceed that? Do you want to put yourself in the best possible position to live the life that you have always dreamed of living? Because the truth is, if you take action, right, you make steps, right, and change something from what you're already doing now, because the decisions you have now have put you in the position that you're in currently. So you make some uncomfortable decisions. You sacrifice some things that actually aren't, don't mean that much to you, right? Aren't getting you actually where you want to be. And you focus on the things that do, right? You start getting into a routine and structure, right? You make good decisions after work. You start hitting the gym 3 to 4 times a week. Only needs to be for half an hour to 45 minutes, right? You can even start at home. That's exactly what I did, right? Because I was so insecure. I hated social environments, right? That wasn't my thing. I had to build up the confidence to go to the gym. And then I went with some buddies, right? I got eased into it. But I was still training extremely hard at home, right? Still doing push-ups, dips, crunches. Managed to get myself a tiny little pull-up bar, right? And all of this helps, right? And even moving, doing steps, right? You need to help yourself. But I think we need to make more of an effort to, prioritize and focus on, leveling up yourself, getting a promotion in your job, right? Doing something that's going to get you closer to your goals, right? Rather than spending your time and energy, building bad habits on, sports teams or TV that don't even know you exist. It's not going to impact you in any way, shape or form, right? So we need to normalize building the good habits, eating clean, celebrating healthy mind, healthy bodies. Because at the end of the day, right, you could have the excuse that you're showing up for your family, showing up for the people you love, right? Putting them in the best financial position. But what's all that for if you could die next week, right? Now, don't get me wrong, we could all die next week. We could all die whenever, right? We don't know how long we have, right? And that's for, in some cases, out of our control. But by being out of shape and having bad habits, right, you are doing yourself no good, right? You are not putting yourself in the best possible position to live as long as possible, support your family as long as possible, provide for as long as possible, be as productive for as long as possible, right? And actually show up, right? And enjoy the fruits of your labor and enjoy the work that you're putting in now, right? And there's no point if you're happy with taking years off your life, if you're not able to see your children, your family, and the people you love succeed as well. Because genuinely, building yourself up financially is only a small part of it, right? Working hard, working in your job, right? Looking to level up, get promotions, reach that next step. That's great, but that's only one piece of the puzzle, right? And that's not gonna allow you to live the most healthy, happy, and fulfilling life possible, right? Your health does, because health is wealth. And you can't be wealthy if you don't have health, because you're not gonna live long enough to experience anything that you're putting in now, right? You're not gonna be in a position where you can enjoy the money, right? Enjoy the family time, spending the actual freedom. You won't be free because you'll be trapped in a body you hate, trapped in a position you don't like, be a slave to bad habits. You see what I'm saying? How do you think any of that is freedom? Everyone's hyper-focused, on financial freedom, financial freedom, financial freedom. But if you can prove to yourself that you can stay consistent with something sustainable, something enjoyable, right? and actually get into the best shape of your life, you're going to be in a better position to actually go ahead and be successful in all areas, because you've already built those skills, those traits that you actually need to adopt and implement to build a successful, financially free future, right? And that's one reason why I truly find it amazing to be in a position to do what I do, to help others achieve their goals, physically, mentally, right? Genuinely allow them and guide them to live a healthy, happy and fulfilling life of freedom, where they're happy in their physique, they can live longer. I am increasing their life quality and lifespan through my failures, through my trials and error, right? And through the mistakes I used to make, right? That's all worth it if you ask me. But at the end of the day, society don't want you to be high energy, high confidence, jacked, healthy, have the physique you want. They don't want you to be in that position. They don't want you to break free. They want you to stay stuck just like everyone else. So ask yourself, are you okay with settling? Are you okay with stuck in the position you're in? With low confidence, low self-esteem, not able to show up in the right way for the people you care for, not able to have the discipline, right? Be able to say no, to not fall into temptations. Are you okay with that? Because all the other distractions are going to be there. So don't let yourself get to a position where you have a family and you don't have that respect, right? And your children are looking up to other guys who have more just because you didn't put in the work now, just because you couldn't step aside, focus on what truly matters and ask yourself what you want the most and start taking your health seriously, start caring for yourself. You have to be kind of selfish if you want to actually start leveling up how you want to. So start working on yourself. And it truly comes down to finding something sustainable that you actually enjoy and can stick to, right? Not jumping into everything at once, because I've been there, I've done that. It doesn't work, right? The second you try, pull out some crazy habit list, right? Make a big list of all the things you want to do to suddenly get into the best shape of your life and have the discipline. That's not how it works. The reason you gain the discipline, right, and get into shape is through sustainable action consistently. It has to be over a period of time, which is all the more reason important why you start now, right? Because the time is going to pass anyway. Whether you like it or not, whether you spend it towards wasting it or growing, the time is still going to pass, right? And the time doesn't care about how you feel or your goals or your excuses. But you have to make the change to step closer to who you want to be, right? And that starts with, building good habits. So my advice would be, select one habit or one thing that's, wasting time, not moving you forward or holding you back, and delete that, right? Remove it and replace it with a new one, right? And that can literally be as simple as, 50 push-ups when you wake up first thing in the morning before you do anything else. Waking up at a specific time. Going to the gym, starting off twice a week. Whatever it may be, hitting your water goals, drinking more water, right? Eating, one clean meal at a time until you completely remove everything, right? Just little things like that. But I want you to be specific, write it down, look at it every day, right? And make a conscious effort and constantly remind yourself about what you're deleting and what you're adding so you can actually stay consistent. And after, a few weeks after you have this, then you do another habit, right? And then you do another and another, right? Until you're able to stick to a full morning routine, right? Until you're able to hit the gym 3 to 4 times a week consistently. Until you're able to do something you actually enjoy and can stick to. Because at the end of the day, there's no point going all in for 3 or 4 days and then completely feeling like you're burnt out already, right? There's no good in doing that. You're not going to gain anything, right? But like I said, the time will pass anyway. So make sure you choose it to level up and you choose it to do something good, right? So use it wisely. So with that being said, this is going to be the end of this video. If you guys do want to be coached by me personally, make sure to check out the description. There'll be a link below where you can either book a call with me straight away. If you want to go straight there, we can talk about, where you're at, where you want to be, how I can actually see if you're a good fit, right? Or you can go ahead, click the link to my Instagram and DM me the word GAIN, and I'll reach out to you to see how I can help. With that being said, see you guys in the next one.